Hi, this is Buck Moore again. I'm on the last leg of my West tour. I've been out here for a couple of weeks, and here I'm on Granville Street at Howard Johnson's in Vancouver. And I'm going to go over some of the common questions that I get when it comes to audio quality in different rooms. So, one question I often get is if people can't hear someone in a room as loud as they think they should, they ask me if I can turn them up. And the answer to that is no, I can't turn them up. And the reason for that is when a sound system is properly set up, it is we set the microphones as loud as they can go without feeding back, so we get the highest possible quality without feeding back. If somebody doesn't go close enough to a microphone, we can't do much about that, aside from put a piece of paper with a note written on it on the podium, please speak closer into microphone so that everybody can hear you, because there's a dramatic difference. Like if I get really close to this microphone, you can hear the difference, right? And so the closer you get to the microphone, the louder it's going to be. So we set it to the optimum level, and we can't do much more. Now we really need the people to speak closer to the microphones to take full advantage of how loud they actually can be. So they're either too far from the mic, and if they're too far from the mic, it's not going to be loud enough. The room noise gets turned up if you turn the mic up. So even if we could turn the microphone up without feeding back, which is unlikely if we set it to the optimum level, we're actually turning the sound of the room up. So you can hear coughs and sneezes in the HVAC system, and pens and paper and everything. You can hear all that in the back. If you go up to a loudspeaker in a room, you can hear all that amplified in the room. So we're turning up the sound of the room now because it's getting fed into the microphone and back through the speaker, so it doesn't make sense. And the gain before feedback is something that the sound engineers would try to maximize. We try to get the most gain out of the system and no feedback. So we call that GBF, or gain before feedback. So, now you can do some work. Like if you had a 31 band equalizer, which is a very helpful tool for sound people or AV people, you can ring out certain frequencies that will feedback potentially, and you can improve the tonal response of the voice and the speaker system, because every room sounds different and every speaker sounds a little different. But especially the rooms, they have different bouncing frequencies, they have different tonalities to them, different distances from the speakers to the back of the room, etc. So if we have a 31 band EQ, we can usually do a lot more than we can if you just put a microphone into a mixing board. You can only do so much with that. There's only very basic controls. So I'll touch on the 31 band EQs coming up. So another question is, if you have a panel of speakers, can they all have a microphone? They can all have a microphone, but they can't all be turned up at once. Usually the sound person is doing a technique called gain riding. They're watching who's talking and they're turning down the other people, not all the way all the time, but just enough so that you can isolate one person talking. Again, if you have like 4 open microphones and only one person's talking, you're picking up the sound of people shuffling papers nearby, you're picking up the sound of the room. It's all going into the 4 mics. So in order to get the best sound quality, you need to isolate the microphone. So whoever's speaking is the loudest. So no, we can't turn them. Some situations you can. It really depends, but in most cases I prefer not to. I prefer to isolate the vocals so we can hear one person talk at one time, because usually that's the way it is. Even if people have a discussion, we just gain ride, and you don't see our fingers move sometimes. We just get used to the way people are having a discussion and turn people up, turn people down, and the audience is none the wiser. What's better, a podium microphone or a lavalier microphone? Podium microphones are usually the most controllable because they're in a fixed position, and the mouth is right in front of the microphone, so you get the best clarity and the best overall sound quality. The lavalier, some of them are really good. However, it depends on the speaker configuration, because if you have speakers above, you can get feedback from the speakers above if the ceiling's not high enough and the person's right below a speaker, then you can get some feedback. So there are hot zones that people should avoid. The other thing is, if it's on a shirt like this, right in the middle, and I move my head around, I'm going to go off mic a little bit here and there, which is not a big deal. But if you took the lavalier, put it over here, and I turn my head, I'm completely off mic. And you can hear the volume fluctuations as a person moves their head, and it's really annoying. You don't want that. So What's better? If a person can project and they have a loud enough voice, then a lavalier is fine. But again, we need a 31 band equalizer to ring out those frequencies. So it's a very important piece of gear for anyone to put in their budget. Please put it in your budget because you absolutely need it. I mentioned the EQ, and that I've been asked by certain people, certain meeting planners and event people, why doesn't everybody just have a 31 band EQ? Well, because they cost money to rent, they cost money to buy, they cost. So it increases your cost. And this is a whole other discussion which I'll get into, but sometimes people want to keep their budget down, and a 31 band equalizer could cost, I've seen it cost like as much as $300 a day, maybe as little as $100, maybe $75, somewhere in that range, anywhere from $75 to $300 a day I've seen equalizers cost. So when you add that up, people can easily take a few $100s off their bill if they don't put, or their invoice, if they don't put a 31 band equalizer on it. So there are other ways around that, and that's a whole other discussion. But that's all I'll say. It's a personal decision to save money sometimes. That's why they're not always present. If you do have one, you can make the sound much, much better than if you just, again, stick a microphone into a mixing board, into a speaker. You're going to get very basic sound that way. And one last thing is the rooms. The rooms all sound different, and they need something like an equalizer to balance it all out. So the next time that you're considering a budget or going over your AV quote, consider getting one of these specialized pieces of gear. There's lots of other stuff you don't need, and I'll go through that in another video, but you definitely need a decent sound person, decent audio visual person to set it up, and order a 31 band equalizer because it'll save your sound. Let's go over the points again. Sorry, it's been a long week and had a bit of a cold. So. You can't turn it up without things feeding back or amplifying the room. Everybody should not have an open microphone at the same time because it lowers the sound quality. And what's better, a lav mic or a podium mic? It depends on the situation, how loud a person projects on their own. Usually I prefer podium microphones. And why doesn't everybody have an EQ? Again, for budget reasons. So I think that's all I have to say, and I'll make another video. Stay tuned for dirty little secrets of the audio-visual industry.